Have you ever felt like God was asking you to do something that made absolutely no sense? Not just a little inconvenient, but genuinely illogical. Okay? Like the timing is wrong, the resources, they're not there. And at that time, you can barely see two steps ahead of yourself. That is exactly where we find Gideon in this final chapter of his story. Welcome back. This is week 4 of our Not by Might series. And if you've been walking through this with me, we have covered a lot of ground, okay? We've talked about hiding in the wine press. We've talked about God stripping away the army. We've talked about the impossible weapons. Remember? Worship, brokenness, and lights. But today we are talking about the part that shakes everything loose. Okay? We are talking about the timing. Because you see, Gideon, he didn't get the green light to go into battle at dawn. He didn't move when the conditions were ideal. God actually told him to attack at midnight. And that's exactly where the victory was. Judges 7 and 9 says that during the night, the Lord said to Gideon, "Get up and go down against the camp, because I am going to give it to you into your hands." I need you to catch that. Did you hear that? Those first 3 words, during the night. Not the next morning, not after everybody's had a good night's rest, not after a great strategy session, not when Gideon had it all together. Right now, in the dark, at midnight. And look, Gideon did it. He was obedient. He took his 300 men, if you remember, that God had already cut them down from 32,000 to 300. And he armed them with trumpets, clay jars with torches inside. Remember, we talked about there were no swords, there were no shields. It was just worship instruments and a light hidden inside broken vessels. And at his signal, what did they do? They blew the trumpet, they smashed the jars, held up the torches, and shouted, "For the Lord and for Gideon." And what did we say happened? We said that that Midianite army that was vast and powerful, that if you remember was described as thick as locusts, they panicked, they turned on each other, and they fled. The victory came at midnight, in the dark, when maybe it made the least amount of sense. But we all know that that's how God works. So, if you're anything like me, you've been waiting for God to move during the daylight hours when you could see, when all the conditions are right. You've been waiting for the right time when you feel prepared. You've been waiting for clarity. Yes, clarity before you take the next step. You've been waiting for more energy. Okay, you want to feel a certain way. You want more resources, maybe even more help. You've been waiting for the path. Just, I need it to make sense before I start walking on it. Let me just understand it a little bit. And meanwhile, God has been whispering, "It's time, it's time, it's time. I need you to move now. I need you to go in the dark, in the middle of the mess, in the middle of the chaos, when it doesn't make sense." And here's why midnight victories leave no room for human credit. Think about it. When you win a battle in broad daylight with a full army and a solid plan and ideal conditions, everything is right, you can convince yourself that you had something to do with it. It's very easy. He could have convinced himself with his 32,000 men. You worked your strategy, your preparation, it paid off. Your strength was able to pull you through. But when you win at midnight with 300 men, trumpets, broken jars, and a torch, there's no question there. That victory belongs to God. So, for the last 3 weeks, we've been talking about laying down your strength and picking up His strength. That's God's strength. But what does that actually look like when we're living it, when we're actually walking it out? Let me break that down. First is obeying before we feel ready. Gideon, he may not have felt confident when he attacked. And he probably didn't, but he was obedient. And there's a difference. You don't need to feel strong to move in God's strength. You just need to obey the next step. And he's already shown you what that very next step is. You just need to be obedient in it. Even if it's in the dark, even if you're afraid, even if you don't see how it's going to work out. Confidence is not the requirement for obedience at all. It's not the requirement for obedience. Number two is worshiping. Worshiping before you see the victory. This is really one of my favorite parts. The trumpets blew before the enemy fled. Worship came first, and then the victory followed. You don't praise God because the battle is over. We praise him because he's already won the battle. And our worship is it positions us to be able to see it. Worship is not a response to victory. It's not our response. Worship is the weapon that releases it. And the third, letting go of the outcome. Gideon's job wasn't to defeat the enemy. His job was to blow the trumpet, break the jar, and hold up the light. I feel like a broken record. I said that so many times. And then God did the rest. So, your job, my job, it isn't to make everything work out. Our job is to show up, be obedient, and trust God with the results. And I know that's hard. It seems very simple. It seems so simple. But it can be hard, especially for those of us that are planners, doers, used to making things happen, just making things shake, making things happen. But this is the invitation to release your grip on the outcome. Just let it go. The fourth is accepting that God's plan, it might look foolish. His plan might look foolish. Trumpets and jars at midnight with 300 men, it made no logical sense at all. Not at all. And neither will God's plan for you. It usually doesn't look like it makes any sense. It looks like sometimes it's too small, too slow, too strange, too risky. But here's how we know it's his plan and not ours. Because our plan, it would make sense to us. And his plan rarely does. If the plan makes perfect sense, it might be your plan. If it requires faith to even take the first step, then it's more than likely his plan. The fifth thing is moving when he says move, not moving when you're comfortable. Midnight is not convenient. The darkness is not convenient. Not being able to see is not convenient. But it's when God said to Gideon, go, go, and Gideon went. God's timing, it will usually disrupt our plans. It will change our comfort and it will ask us to move before we feel ready. And that's not a sign that you misheard him. No, no, it's not. That's the sign that you're walking in his strength, not yours. Here's what I love most about this story when we're talking about Gideon. When the battle was over, nobody could say, wow, Gideon, he's such a great military strategist. Nobody could say, you know what? That army that he had, oh my gosh, they were so well trained. Nobody could say, when I look at them, I can tell they won because they were just stronger. They couldn't say any of that. The only thing anyone could say was, God did that. And let me tell you, that's the point. God is stripping away your strength, your strategies, and your armies, whatever it is that you've built up, not to humiliate you, but to position you for a victory so impossible that everyone who sees it will know God did that. Not your hustle. Your hustle didn't do it. Not your perfect plan. It didn't do it. Not your willpower. God. And when you finally step into that victory, when you look back at the battle that you thought would destroy you, and you realize God won it at midnight with worship, brokenness, and light, you'll understand why he had to strip everything else away first. Because the victory was never about you or me being strong. It never was about us being strong enough. It was about him being glorified, about him being lifted up. So we're at the end of this series, but I need you to hear this. This is not the end of your story. This is the beginning of a new chapter. This is the beginning of a new chapter, one where you stop running in your own strength and start walking in God's strength. So, let me ask you this question. What is God asking you to do at midnight in the dark that doesn't make sense and you can't quite see it? What steps is He asking you to take in the dark when you don't feel prepared or feel ready? Maybe it's finally surrendering that thing that you've been trying to control. Maybe it's saying yes to the calling you've been avoiding because you feel unqualified. Maybe it's letting go of that plan that you've been just clinging to. Let go of it so God can give you His plan. Maybe it's worshiping in the middle of the mess instead of waiting for it to get better. Worshiping. Maybe it's just taking the next step, even though you can't see the whole path. Whatever it is, you don't have to be strong enough. Do you hear me? You don't have to be strong enough. You just have to be obedient. Blow the trumpet, break the jar, hold up the light, and let God win the battle. This month, we've walked through Gideon's story together. And honestly, it's wrecked me in my quiet time, but in the best way. There are a lot of things that God had been stripping away from me. We talked about the disconnect between how you see yourself, weak, tired, and inadequate, and then how God sees you. He sees you mighty, chosen, exactly who He needs you to be. We talked about why God strips away the things you think you need so that you'll start relying on your own strength and start relying on His strength. We've covered a lot. We've talked about the weapons that He gives. worship, brokenness, and light. There it is again. And today we talked about what it looks like to actually move in his strength, even when it's midnight, even when you're afraid, even when it makes no sense to you. You are not too weak for what God has called you to. The problem is you've just been trying to do it in your own strength. And now, here God is, He's inviting you to lay down your strength and allow His strength to work through you and step into a victory that only He can win. So, I want you to stop hiding in the wine press. Stop building armies that He's going to reduce them anyway. So stop building up things that God is going to strip away. Stop waiting for daylight when God is calling you and me to move at midnight. You are the mighty warrior He's been calling you all along. She's ready. She's ready. So I would love to hear from you. What's your biggest takeaway from this series? What is God asking you to lay down so that you can pick up the weapons that He's provided for you instead? I want you to drop it in the comments. I read every single comment. And I'm cheering you on. So if this message, if it resonated with you, I want you to share it with a friend, share it with another woman who needs to hear it. Tag a friend, send her this link. Let's help each other stop running on fumes, stop running on empty, and start operating in the strength of the Lord. Now remember, if you missed any part of this series, you can go back and watch them. All four videos are right here on this channel, and they're there waiting for you. So you can go back and catch up if you need to. Next month, we are diving into something brand new. So make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss a thing. Until next time.